All right, everybody. We're going to talk about converting fractions to decimals today. Okay, so a fraction, 1 over 2, 1/2. Okay, so there's some parts that we need to understand or know what they are. So the top number we call a numerator. The bottom number we call a denominator. Okay, and we need to understand that a fraction is basically a division problem. Okay, and that helps us when we convert our fraction to a decimal. Okay, so basically what 1/2 tells us is 1 divided by 2. Okay, so 1 divided by 2. So when we rewrite this, 1 divided by 2. Okay, so 1 inside the house divided by 2. Now we're just going to try to simplify, or try to divide. So will 2 go into 1? No. So we put a 0, and that's where we place our decimal. Okay? Now, once we get there, we add a 0 in with our 1. Okay? Once we do that, we go 2. How many times will 2 go into 10? Well, 2 times 5 is 10. Okay? And then we subtract, and that gives us a 0. Now when we have a 0 here, that tells us that our decimal, it stops. It does not go any further, so it terminates. So we know now that 1/2 is equal to the same as 0.5. Okay? Now, there is something that we need to talk about, and it is a fraction called an improper fraction. Okay, so an improper fraction is a fraction that has a numerator larger than the denominator. So for example, 4/3, 4 over 3, is an improper fraction. Now, when we convert an improper fraction to a decimal, we do the same thing. Okay, so we have 4 divided by 3. So 3 goes into 4. Well, it goes into it one time. Okay, so 1 times 3 is 3. We subtract, and we get a 1. Okay, well, will 3 go into 1? No. So our decimal point comes into play now. Now we can add as many zeros down here with this 4 as we want. Okay, so we just drop that down, that 0. So will 3 go into 10? Yes, and it goes into 10 3 times. Okay? Now, so we get 10 minus 9. So we subtract. 3 go into 1? No. So we add another 0. Drop it down. 3 goes into 10. Well, it goes 3 times. We've already figured that out. Okay? Now, what we have to realize now is there's a pattern. Right? 10 minus 9. 10 minus 9. Well, guess what? There's going to be 10 minus 9 again. Okay? So when that happens, when this step, when we start repeating, okay, that means that that decimal is going to stay the same throughout. Okay? So when it does, we can use what's called a bar notation. Okay? And that bar notation is just a simple little line. All right? So when we write it, we can just write 1.3 because why? That 3, it just keeps going up here. Okay? And put that little line over top, and that tells us that 1.3 and that 3 repeats. So bar notation, the little bar above that number, means that number, or numbers, if it's over more than 1, it just keeps repeating. Okay? Now, I'll place that right there. Let you look at it for a second. This is how you convert fractions to decimals. Okay? Okay, now we're going to talk about converting decimal to a fraction. So we have a decimal of 0.5 or 0.5. Okay? in order to convert this decimal to a fraction, we need to understand where our last digit in our decimal is when we're talking about placeholding. So, what placeholder is the 5 in? It's in the tenths place. Okay? It's in the tenths place. All right? So, when we find that out, we're just going to take the number or numbers, all of them, in our decimal. So, in this case, it's just a 5. Okay? We're going to put that as our numerator. And our denominator is going to be, well, my 5 is in the tenths place. That's my last digit. So the tenths place, well, that's 10. Okay? Now, when we're doing these, and I'll let you use your calculators. I'm going to show you. Okay, here's a calculator. I turn it on. Okay, to make a fraction on your calculator. All right, and this fraction is what? 5/10. So 5. You see this little ABC button? Now, on some calculators, it might be some other places. But it says A, then it says B/C. We're going to hit that. And you see what it shows up? A backwards L looks like. Okay? And then we're going to put in our denominator, which is 10. So 5/10. You can kind of see over here to the side, 5/10. All you're going to have to do is hit equal. When you hit equal, it simplifies it for you. Okay? It puts it into simplest form. So 5/10 is equal to 1/2. All right? Now, we got to 1/2 because we found the greatest common factor in 5 and 10. Okay? So the greatest common factor in 5 and 10 is what? Well, 5 will go into both of these. So you divide the top and the bottom by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay? So that's how you break it down. Now, let's look at a little bit different decimals. And I'll just write 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now, I told you that we place all the numbers, okay, all the numbers in the decimal over whatever the last digit is. So the last digit is 3. So the 1 is in the tenths. 2 is in the hundredths place. 3 is in the thousandths. So the thousandth placeholder. Okay? So I'm going to write all the digits up there. So we have 1, 2, and 3 over, well, the last digit's in the thousandths. So it's over 1,000. Okay? Now, if we just have 2 digits, well, we look at the 3, and it's in the what place? Well, that second number is in the hundredths. All right, so we're going to write the number over 100. Okay? Okay, now we got a new thing that we're going to show. 1.5. Okay. We're not changing anything that we do. We're going to look at the last digit. That's a 5. Okay, we're going to put the whole number. Okay, we're going to drop the decimal out. Okay, we're going to put the whole number. So 1/5. So now we got 15. That 5 is still where? In the tenths place. So 15 over 10. Okay, 15 over 10. Now, we talked about it earlier. That's an improper fraction, right? Okay, an improper fraction. Now, sometimes we have to change our improper fractions to what is called a mixed number. So a mixed number is a whole number and a fraction. All right? So I'm going to change my improper fraction, 15 over 10, into a mixed number. And here's how I do that. Like I said, a fraction is what? A division problem. Okay. All right, so I have my numerator divided by my denominator. So 10 goes into 15, goes into it once. Okay, so 10 times 1. All right, I'm going to subtract these. So 15 minus 5, okay, or 15 minus 10 is 5. Okay, now I'm going to stop right there because now I have my mixed number, and here's why. This number right here, that's my whole number. So I have 1, okay. My 5, my remainder, well, that is my numerator now, okay. And my 10, well, where did my 10 come from? Let me slide this on over. My 10 was my what? My denominator. Okay, so if I tell you to put a fraction, an improper fraction, into a mixed number, well, we're still going to divide, but when we get right here to this last step, we're stopping. Okay, because I have my whole number, my numerator, and my denominator. 1 and 5/10. Now, that 5/10 can be simplified, but for right now, that is our mixed number. Okay? Now, I hope you use this and review. Use this on your any of your assignments or your quiz, okay? And you can always pause it and write it down in your math journal as well, okay? So I hope this helps.